I am in touch with all the survivors that I've included in the film. They all need to deal with a trauma that will take years to cope with. And there is a question that people ask them if they have this feeling of revenge. And I must tell you, not a single one said that he has the feeling of revenge after this catastrophe that happened to him. They do not want to revenge. They are in hope to heal themselves, heal their society, to find love. And that is something that gives me a lot of hope about this generation.
A critical component to mind control. Being made over to be clones of the person who's at the top of the pyramid. Interested in this subject because of my own cult involvement. I was recruited in 1974 into a front group of the Moonies.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Hassan with another episode of my podcast, Cult Conversations, The Influence Continuum, with me, Dr. Steve Hassan. I have a very distinguished filmmaker for a second interview. I interviewed Yariv Mozer about his incredible film that is now on Amazon Prime called The Devil's Confession, the Lost Eichmann tapes, on Amazon Prime. And he recently won an Emmy for his documentary, We Will Dance Again, that is now streaming on Paramount Plus. And I told Yariv after our last interview, I really want to watch it, and I did. And before I give all the laudatories about your credentials, Yariv, I'll just say it was such a powerful movie. I can understand why it won an Emmy, but it was so hard to watch because it was a documentary about the Nova Music Festival where Hamas attacked on October 7th. So it was like being there. I'm tearing up just even talking about it. But let me just say, you are a teacher at Tel Aviv University. You're at the Tisch School of Film and Television. You're a board member of the Israeli Academy of Film and Television. You just are an amazing storyteller and filmmaker. I'm sure I'm leaving out more things, but we'll do a blog on this. And I just want to say that in this current insane moment in political history of the planet Earth, both of our countries are just, there's so much chaos, and ultra right-wing extremists are in power, and those of us committed to human rights and decency and Jewish values of tikkun olam and helping the people who are suffering is it's just swirling around. And I wanted to sit you down and talk about this movie because I really think people need to watch it. I'm just seeing every single day stuff about Hamas and the Palestinians, and I think the public needs to be reminded that the worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust took place on October 7th, and that the fact that Hamas has not released the hostages has continued this war and allowed the ultra extremists to keep everyone in this posture. That's all I'm going to say right now. But Yariv, I know that your family has a Holocaust background, but you're very interested in truth telling. So help my listeners get motivated to watch this incredible film.
So first of all, I do agree with everything you have said. I think at this point in time, this war should have ended. The hostages should have been released. I think it's the responsibility of the state and government of Israel, before we think about Hamas, that should, of course, release them. But Israel should have stopped the war. The the casualties of war, the innocent casualties of war, are devastating. And there is a point in which a country needs to understand that war cannot solve everything, and violence cannot solve everything. And there is a point in which I think today the majority of Israelis are in favor of stopping the war. Unfortunately, we have a government ruled by extreme right-wing parties that are in favor of continuing the war from different values and interests. And it's very unfortunate for, I would say, the majority of Israelis, definitely for me. So having said that, I'll put it aside and I'll continue and talk about the film. On the 7th of October, as a documentary filmmaker, I felt the necessity to leave my house and get as close as possible to the site of events. It was very frightening. It was still a combat zone. It was still filled with terrorists that invaded in numerous numbers into the south of Israel. But I've tried in any possible way to get there and film it by myself, just to be a witness. And that was the starting point. I got the permission from the Israeli army to be accompanied by a commander unit to the site of the massacre of the Nova Music Festival. And I was, I think, one of the first ones 2 days after the massacre to come with a camera and to bear witness to the remains of this horrible massacre, like nothing I've seen in my life. And this was the starting point of doing a documentary, trying to trace those witnesses, survivors that could share their personal stories, share their footage, which is mind-blowing because this young generation of festival goers use their phones to capture those horrific moments. And this is, I think I haven't seen something like this, a terror attack being filmed by those survivors and by those who didn't survive as well. But at the same time, the terrorists themselves were using their own GoPro cameras to capture those horrific moments. And I don't know why, I'm trying to place myself in their shoes, but I think they were so ecstatic and wanted to share those moments, horrific moments with the world. This is, for them, was a jihadi cause of killing people. And all of them used GoPro cameras, and I had to get my hands on those GoPro cameras. And so the audience will be able to see those moments from both angles. And I think that this is a terror attack that you can see for the first time from both angles that capture the same moments in the same time. And I think that this is the power of this film.
Exactly. And, we've unfortunately had many terror attacks by usually individuals, not groups of people and organized. And they wanted to everyone to see their accomplishments, to inspire other people to become terrorists. So that's my take on why were they filming this, was to try to encourage more violence. I don't know.
And it's strange. It's the thing is that weeks after the 7th of October, after they published those short videos of them taken from the GoPro cameras, taken from their cell phones, they published it mainly on their Telegram channels. Hamas has several Telegram channels, and we, at the beginning, we started downloading all this material. And it was a wise thing because weeks into after this event, Hamas was taking off this material because they understood that it damages their own image. Right. So I think Hamas understood that they need to change the way they want to be perceived by the world. A lot of movements praise them as freedom fighters, as people that fight for a good cause. And for them, those images were suddenly against what they want to show the world, and they took it off. And for me, it was a challenge not only to use this material that we captured in the beginning, but to get into find the files, that the original files from the GoPro cameras, mainly of the terrorists that didn't survive. The Israeli army and police didn't want to collaborate with us. I don't understand till this day why, but officially I couldn't get the footage, the files, the video files, the original video files of the GoPro cameras. Several excuses. We want to use it in a trial one of those days. This will serve as evidence. You cannot use it. But we had to use, some still people from connections and things like this and get the material.
Yeah. So I also want to say Telegram is a Russian app, and it's been outed as a place where people are being radicalized into terrorist groups too. And I also just want to comment that when the attack happened on the U.S. Capitol, January 6th, everybody was filming, and it was their camera footage that put them in jail. Little did we know that Trump would give them unconditional pardons after they've already gone to jail because they were convicted or they pled guilty. But it's part of this mentality of 2025 or 2024, whatever, that we should, we all should have reality television. So I'm walking down the street and everyone should know what I'm eating, for lunch or something. It's ridiculous. But when it comes to political propagandizing, now we're seeing even AI stuff where there's a question of, is it real or is it not real? And how do we know? And it will ultimately come down to credible sources, like people who have journalistic integrity like yourself, who are I went myself to go and film. I wanted to make sure and verify things. And for those who are not aware of it, because your movie showed the setting, that people were going there to party. People were just, Palestinians were partying, Israelis were partying, Americans visiting were partying at this film festival. They had
music festival.
Music festival. It was a party. It was a happening. It was like a version of modern day Woodstock, is all I can think of, but it was a positive thing. So we see the people there and how their friendships and their relationships. So you tell individual stories before the attack and during the attack, and then some of the horrors afterward. And one of the people you featured was Hirsch Goldberg, who is one of the most famous people in the film. We see him, in the shelter and them throwing grenades in, and he lost a hand, and we see him being piled into the Hamas truck, being kidnapped, bleeding all over the place. And I just watched a video by his mother, Rachel, who talked about her interviews with one of the survivors. I believe it's Or Levy. And it remind me, wasn't he in your film?
Or is being taken also from the same shelter,
right?
But I didn't hear the interview of Rachel. What did she say about?
Oh my God! I cry easily these days. But Or was talking about how Hirsch, having lost a hand, was quoting Viktor Frankl, who was a concentration surviving psychiatrist who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, about how he survived 4 concentration camps. And apparently he was going to everybody saying, what is your why to stay alive? And then we can talk about how we're going to manage despite this grueling situation. So he was inspiring people daily to stay
during the
alive.
hostage period. Yes.
Yeah.
And
he was murdered.
He was murdered when this was the most devastating moment for me, because during the editing period of when I did the film, Hirsch was still alive. We knew he's alive. We knew he's alive in Gaza. There were videos that Hamas published of interviews with Hirsch in which he begs the government of Israel to stop the war and release him. And during this whole period of time, I always, when I've worked on the film and when the film was out, I talked about with audiences about Hirsch, about my expectation that Hirsch one day will be released and will watch this film. I, from the beginning, was looking for someone who knew Hirsch. And one of the characters in the film, Haleli is her name, she came with Hirsch in the same car to the party. So she was the one who last saw Hirsch during the party. She spoke about their friendships. She spoke about how much they wanted to just celebrate. This was the Jewish holiday Simchat Torah. And they both come from religious families. And she was the one who witnessed Hirsch saying, I didn't say to my parents that I'm going to party because it was Friday night. So he comes from a religious family. He didn't want to upset them that he's going to celebrate on Saturday, which is a holy day for Jewish religious people. And Hirsch was apparently a little bit ashamed from his family that he's going to celebrate and dance.
Right.
So he kept it a secret. And this is all came from Haleli, his friend. And this morning that I wake up to the news that Hirsch was murdered by Hamas, by his terrorist that captured him, that was guarding him, when they felt the danger of the Israeli army approaching, this is the order they received to kill the hostages. And Hirsch was killed, murdered, together with 5 more hostages. And we had to go back to the editing room and change the film accordingly. Change to the fact that Hirsch was murdered during the time of his
captivity.
When he was a hostage. Captivity,
right.
Yes. A very sad moment for me as a filmmaker.
Yeah, and his family were very public in the United States and on world media, pleading for the hostages to be returned and for the Israeli government to put an emphasis on returning the hostages, like the priority and such. You won an Emmy. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And what was the category that you won the Emmy?
It's called the Best Outstanding Documentary in Current Affairs category.
Yeah.
And I think it was a very meaningful moment, not only for me as a filmmaker. It is a big achievement and, of course, a peak in my career, but it was also a moment for my country, for my people. I mean, the Jewish nation in general.
Right.
That a film like this that tells the story of the 7th of October is being recognized by an outstanding achievement like this, by the Emmy Award. So it's not only a cinematic achievement, it's also a point in time in which we as the Jewish people, I feel, are in a way feels a lot of denial of the world towards what happened on the 7th of October. And I think this film is an evidence
Yes.
When you watch this film, you cannot deny what happened on the 7th of October. It doesn't mean that you need to justify every step that happened since then.
Yes.
And it's very important for me to say it. I
Right.
do not justify every act and think that the government of Israel did since the 7th of October, but you need to understand what happened to us Israelis and to the Jewish people. As you said, this is an act of violence that since the Holocaust didn't happen to us. And this is what this film is about.
Yeah.
It's a moment in history that people need to understand and look in their eyes and just to acknowledge the truth. And
Right.
this is what this award is for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I want people to understand, because I've been to Israel numerous times. My first wife was a Sabra. She was an Israeli American. People in the world need to understand how close Israelis are, that everybody knows everybody. And so people are touched very personally. And Hamas knew this. They did it deliberately. They wanted to terrorize because they expected a big reaction, because they, I believe, strategically wanted to turn the world against Jews in Israel, and to try to say, well, the Jewish state shouldn't exist anymore, which, I'm firmly believing we need a state, although I would not feel comfortable, honestly, Yariv, going to Israel myself, even though I'm Jewish, because of the ultra extremist cult members who are influencing the government. These people who believe they're messianically ordained to do these acts, this kind of black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil. We're righteous, we're doing Hashem's work, and they're all Satan and terrible people. This, and you were saying this mentality of war, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I need to answer this, Stephen.
Please.
I see Trump govern the United States of America. And of course, I don't believe in the values that Trump is, some of the values that Trump is leading the United States to. Does this mean that I am against all the people of the United States of America? Does that mean that I will not travel or support the United States of America? Does that mean that I will lose the hope that the United States of America will return one day to their original values and constitution and everything that represent, that the United States of America do represent? So I'm an Israeli. I believe in the right of the Jewish people to have a sovereign state, an independent Jewish state, the one and only Jewish state in the world after what my grandparents have suffered.
Right.
I do acknowledge the right of the Jewish people to have a state. And I do think that Jews should come to Israel and support us and have the right, for example, to vote, because every Jew is entitled to become an Israeli citizen. And then go, it's a democracy, and vote, and then we can change the government of Israel. This is what I'm hoping. This is why I'm protesting in the streets. This is why I'm still here fighting for better reality, better days in Israel, better government, for a change. I think I'm not willing to give up yet at this point in time.
I really appreciate your comments, and I struggle to find anything that Trump is doing to be positive, honestly. His treatment of blacks and Hispanic people with ICE and without warrants, without habeas corpus, attacking citizens, people with green cards, it's disgusting. And he's, a serial predator according to all the women who alleged that he raped them and assaulted them, including then underage girls. And right now, the Epstein files are really, it seems like it could be a changing point in terms of at least a lot of his base that naively thought he was going to reveal the Epstein files and get rid of all the Hollywood pedophiles, not thinking that, oh, they were best friends for 15 years and he liked girls and he did pageants. Anyway, regarding your statement about Jews should come to Israel and vote and be part of the opposition and the resistance, I'm all for that. I'm just saying, me personally, as a cult mind control expert, who was consulted by the Israeli director of social services about cults in Israel and taught him my models and shared my models. But he said, we can't talk about the ultra-Orthodox at all. And you know, I have modern Orthodox family and friends, so I'm not against modern Orthodoxy, but I'm talking about the extremists, the people who truly have a mindset like I had in the Moonies back in the 70s of all or nothing, black and white. We're ordained by God, Hashem, and other people do not have value if they're not serving, you know, our group. So I'm just saying I wouldn't feel safe going there. But I do feel strongly that a lot of Hamas propaganda has been infiltrating a lot of liberal Jewish youth, at least in the United States, where they're not thinking and understanding the history that Palestine was a British colony. You know, there were many other entities in control of that land. There's a whole long history of things, and because the Holocaust happened, because people turned their back on the Jews, and because the Brits and the British Christians were like, yeah, we should really give them, you know, access to their ancient lands. That was a big part of, I think, the vote to create the nation of Israel. But I'm seeing the world now, and I resist my own categorization of all or nothing. But I'm seeing entities of authoritarianism versus people who are pro-democracy and human rights and women's rights and gay rights and indigenous rights and children's rights, and do we want, you know, to have a planet that's sustainable for human life, or do we want to just keep cooking our environment and experiencing these horrendous climate change things? I don't think that we can be passive. We need to be activists. So that's my little rant about that.
And I want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned here and share my views about Hamas, you know, because
Please.
It comes out from the film. And there is one thing that frightens me a lot, and it's those groups that are against Israel include, for example, Queers for Palestine, which is something that I just cannot understand. LGBT people are being persecuted in not only by Hamas, also by the Palestinian Authority. To be honest, there is not a single Arab state in all the Middle East, in all Muslim countries, that accept legal rights, equal rights for LGBT people. And LGBT movements in Western countries support Hamas. That is insane. Hamas was throwing from rooftops gay men for doing gay acts. Right. Hamas is against women's rights. Hamas cannot accept, of course, gay men and lesbian and trans people.
Right.
What is going on with you? How come you support Hamas? For God's sake, these people are against everything that we believe in our Western values. That does not mean, by no meaning, that I am in favor of a genocide or starving the people of Palestine or continuing the war as it is being conducted nowadays.
Right.
No, I am not. But people need to be more understandable. Look at the facts. Look at reality as it is.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And that I need to add that because of my specialization studying brainwashing and mind control and how psychological warfare can access people's brains and reprogram them to beliefs, I first want to just say that I grew up conservative Jewish. My home was kosher and my mom lit Shabbat candles on Friday night. Her family were Orthodox, and my grandfather would daven with tefillin in the basement by the washing machine whenever he came to visit, right? But when I was in the Moonies, I was believing the Holocaust was necessary because the Jews didn't accept Jesus. And I had been educated about the Shoah. I had been to Israel. And so, and all I can say is the real me would never accept those beliefs, but I was sleep deprived, I was hypnotized, and I was indoctrinated into this pseudo identity, this cult identity, where I was told to be like small Sun Myung Moon. And so all of my values got twisted. So this is from where I speak and my expertise, that I want to just state categorically that Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and the US CIA and other black ops organizations that include Christian nationalists and their own ideological agenda to be against women's rights and abortion rights, etc., that there's been a deliberate infiltration of the left, of the people who are gay, as well as the right, to make them more extreme and to pit people against each other, even within the resistance of Trump. So I just wanted to add that psycho-historical framework that I operate from, and logic doesn't do it. To just say to a gay person, how could you be for Hamas? You have to explain brainwashing and mind control. Ask them to go back in time before they had that belief and ask them to remember, how did they change their belief? Was it a propaganda video? Was it a particular professor, or what? But when I encourage people to trace back how their minds got hacked, then they start realizing, oh, they lied to me about this meeting. So-and-so love bombed me and made me believe that, I was so special. And they can start to pick the pieces apart of how their minds got hacked. And then they can exit and go, oh my goodness, how could I be supporting something that is anti my own identity and my own beingness? So forgive me for my rant on that, but I really want people to understand we're living in one planet, and we need to figure out how to live together in peace, and not just say there's no hope, or just say, well, the fossil fuel corporations and countries are too powerful, so we can't do anything about global warming, or AI is continuing without any guardrails, so maybe we'll have a zombie apocalypse and they'll take over and kill all the humans. But in the meantime, this is my culture as a Jew. It's like tikkun olam, like you just have to do what you can do within your own sphere to make the world a little bit better every day.
I agree. This is something that I believe in as well. And going back to the film,
please,
I think the fact that you see, and it's not a coincidence, I chose the characters in the film to be from the same group of ages. So it's youth, young people. And as you said, it was an international music festival. People came from all over the world. They were DJs invited from different countries. Right. It was a rave of trance music festival. They came to party and to have fun, but also with the values of nature preservation and peace and love and all the good things.
Yes.
And these are young people in their 20s. And hopefully for me, young people all over the world will watch the film and identify with people that they see as themselves. I mean, it could have been any of you from America, from any other country in the West, right, or in the East, coming to the State of Israel for this music festival that could have taken place in any other country.
Yes,
this exactly. Is why I mentioned there that it comes from, it's a Brazilian festival called Universo Paralelo. Mm-hmm. So it's a known trance music festival that is being held in different places in the world. Mm-hmm. And when you see those young people, you can identify with their values. You can identify with their stories. You can identify with what was motivating them. And then to see how they had to encounter this brutal attack, which really did not differentiate no religion or identity or nationality. Arabs were being killed and taken hostage by Hamas. This is what people do not understand. But there were Arabs being taken as hostages till this day by Hamas. There were Arabs, and you can see it in the film, a Bedouin, Arab, Palestinian, being murdered by Hamas viciously only because he lives next to Israelis. And he was going in, he was part of this festival.
Right.
That is, Hamas is a brutal terror organization. And that is something that you need to acknowledge and you can see in the film.
Well said. And the barbarism, the cold-blooded murdering, and thankfully you didn't show any rapes, but the allusion to the rape of beautiful, beautiful women who were captured. It's just heartbreaking that human beings could do that to someone else. And I just want to come back to, I really want the public to step into the shoes of you, an Israeli whose family survived the Holocaust, and other Israelis to understand the devastating trauma that was perpetrated. Like, this was beyond imagination. And you documented it.
Exactly.
So,
I agree with every word.
Yeah. And I'll just say, there are a lot of powerful Arab nations that could really help the Palestinians if they wanted to. Egypt could let people in, and, people are not understanding the political, historical Middle East, and it's complicated. But I really appreciate you bringing up the young people point of view, and it was, in fact, and that they're our future. And we want people, go back to your appeal, come to Israel, vote, help join the resistance against this authoritarian government that's trying to destroy democracy in Israel.
And I'll tell you another point of hope for me. I am in touch with all the survivors that I've included in the film. They became close friends, and I follow them, and they all need to deal with a trauma that will take years to cope with. And there is a question that people ask them, because they join me to screenings and meeting of people here and outside of Israel, if they have this feeling of revenge. And I must tell you, not a single one said out loud that he has the feeling of revenge after this catastrophe that happened to him. They do not want to revenge. They are in hope to heal themselves. They're in hope to heal their society. They're in hope to find love. And that is something that gives me a lot of hope about this generation. They didn't and they don't have the feeling of revenge.
So I want to just comment. I don't know if you've seen Mandy Patinkin recently,
yes,
who was in The Princess Bride. And he was like, and he I've met him. He actually came to my temple for a bar mitzvah, and we got to sit down and schmooze a little bit, a kiddush. Really great guy. But he just said his character, the last thing in the movie was, I've been in the revenge business for so long, I don't know what else I should do with myself. But Mandy has been speaking out passionately. We've been the victims throughout history. We're not oppressors. This is not our nature. This is not our DNA. This is not okay, and once more, Jewish people to speak up against the policies of the current Israeli government.
And as I said in the beginning, I agree with Mandy Patinkin. I agree, like most of Israelis. I think today we are the majority that are hoping every day that this government will fall and we will go into elections and choose a different path and start to a different way in the history of our people and the history of this country. I know we can change. I know we can deal with this reality different. And at the same time, I think the Palestinian people should also be on the route to get rid of organizations like Hamas that rule them and exploit them, and also are very vicious and violent and use violence as a path. I hope these two nations will overcome and find again a way of dialogue and peace.
Yeah, and Iran, swears that America and Israel are the great Satan. So
yes,
it's another thing to keep in mind. There was another idea I wanted to say, but it's gone in and out of my mind. I feel close to you, even though we've never met. I've now watched 2 of your films, and if you haven't seen my interview and haven't watched the Eichmann, The Devil's Confession, the Lost Eichmann tapes, it's on Amazon Prime. Because Hannah Arendt, wrote her book, The Banality of Evil, and people to this day are quoting that Eichmann was just following orders, and your film completely blew that story out of the water with the fact he was a full-blown anti-Semitic, bastard who liked killing Jews. It just was what it was, right?
Yeah.
Last words, my friend. Thank you. Stay safe. And And I think that I think a lot of people in the U.S. don't understand. Maybe they're not talking to Israelis like yourself. I have family that are protesting there too, so I'm aware of it. But most Americans are just hearing, news about the people being starved and being shot day after day after day, and it's just all negative against Israeli people. I think it's really important that you said most people are opposed to this policy and are trying their best to change it.
Yeah, and you should remember it's a democratic state, and just think of us and think of other states, and do not blame every Israeli for every type of policy that our government is conducting. This is what I need to say, and to remind people from all over the world. This is, again, the only Jewish state. We will overcome this period of time. We will change this government. We will find better days. And this is what I hope for my country and my people. And thank you for this stage, Stephen.
And I'm going to mirror that with America. Don't hate the American people. Most of us are good people, and we don't like Trump, and we're appalled by his destruction of the checks and balances of laws, the applications of all of the rights that we fought for. And our many people are now waking up from the trance of the cult of Trump. And right now, the Epstein files seems to be one of the major pieces of people going, he actually was a predator himself, and that's why he's not releasing the information. And as we're wrapping up, I'll just add that I posted a short video, another temple kiddush story, Yariv. I was at my temple after a bar mitzvah, and I overheard a man talking about having golfed with Trump, and I introduced myself and I asked, can I listen to what you're saying? And he said, sure. This was a medical doctor who was asked by Trump, can you give me a referral for antibiotic resistant gonorrhea? Because I can't pee and I can't fuck. Because he had unprotected sex with hundreds of girls and women and never thought, wear a condom or whatever. Anyway, so it was a true story. He asked me not to use his name, but it's a verified story. People need to wake up. This guy's a bad dude, just a stereotypical cult leader. Anyway, your movie, We Will Dance Again, Yariv Mozer has won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Documentary. And go watch it. It's on Paramount. And hit the pause button a lot. Bring your tissues. That's all I can say, because it's just heartbreaking, but so important for this day and age. Thank you, Yariv.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much.